I think this is kind of be the overview um, of the systems and just trying to gauge where you're at. And then we can kind of jump into what Decubing does as far as the design pieces and where we've kind of developed it. So like with your design background, I'm just curious, like technically what software do you usually use? You know, what is your familiarity? You said menus and print design like that. Have you ever designed a website? If so, like what have you used to do that? But like just the technical background, so I can kind of form form this call around that.
Yeah, so the bulk of my experience is mainly like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, those print related things. I'm just now kind of playing around with XD. But Adobe tooling is all very similar, so that's an easy kind of switch to go to. Otherwise, I mean, I've played around with Balsamic and Figma and Miro, just lightly, but cool. Yeah, I have a lot of Adobe experience.
Cool. Yeah, so we use a few different tools with design, and it's best to kind of talk about where WordPress is right now, since everything's built in WordPress, and kind of how we see that influencing design and working with it. And the interesting thing is WordPress is in kind of a transitional state right now. And it's on this project called, let me pull it up real quick, full site editing. And basically right now, what's happening is the old way of doing editing in WordPress was very much developer focused. You would have a theme, a WordPress theme, and that theme would have like different PHP files, different CSS files in it. And it would look something like this. You would have just different CSS files, different PHP files, and all of that would control what's happening in WordPress. Now, WordPress is moving to something that's more JavaScript centered, and it's based off of a JSON file. So the big change, and I have this page up so that you can look at it later, and I'll put it in the chat right now too. A big thing that's changing with WordPress is that WordPress is basically becoming a design tool, where everything that you can see on the website, the headers, the footers, the colors, the fonts, all of that, will eventually be all editable within WordPress. And the features are slowly rolling out right now into WordPress. So I can just give you a quick demo, and I'm showing you this stuff because it's kind of where everything is going, and to really be, if you want to be in that design center, and where I think we're going to need to put designers in the future is really inside WordPress. So right now it's a beta version, but there's a site editor, and it's really kind of similar to a lot of design programs where you have the different colors that you can change. You can click on things. It's very kind of what you see is what you get. And you're no longer doing a lot of coding. You're just in this editor updating everything from the footers to the headers to like different types of columns, different types of pages. So all of this is happening in WordPress. And this is like a very big change. Right now, the thing about full site editing is it's very much in beta. We're not actively using it for a lot of, we're not using it for any client websites right this second because it's just not mature enough, but it will eventually. I highly suggest you to kind of take a look at this, see what it's about, kind of grab into this. The other thing about WordPress is everything is documented. So you can start to kind of see what's going on within WordPress. But where we are right now is we're building, we call it our pro design system. And basically what it is it allows us to rapidly develop new sites because most of the work is done inside our pro design, our kind of WordPress install. There's not a lot of stuff that's done in XD or Photoshop or anything like that. And basically what we do is if it's a new site coming in, we Trey, who's one of our developers, will look at the project brief and say, all like this amount of stuff can be done inside of WordPress. Here's some original things that need to be developed. The original things that need to be developed will be done in XD or Photoshop or Illustrator. The things that can be done in WordPress will usually be done in WordPress. So this is almost a design tool. And I'm going to kind of go through this very quickly, and then we'll kind of stop and have conversations around different pieces. But so this is the current client-facing interface that we use. It's pro.decubing.com/WP and I'm going to give you a user right now so that you can create a test site if you want to. So I'm actually going to create you a test site right now. Let's see. Katie, Katie, what's your email?
Katie@operationspark.org.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give you a user so that you can get in here and create a test site. Actually, I'll create the test site for you since you haven't really used WordPress before. So let me just go into sites. I'll add a new one. Let's call this Katie Experiments. Okay, cool. And so now you'll have access to this site. Everything that I'm showing you here, you'll be able to kind of use and edit and play around with that. Okay, so we have posts, media, forms, pages, comments, appearance, plugins, all these kind of different things here. Just a quick anatomy of WordPress, because I'm kind of going through like a basic demo of how to use it, and then we'll get into like more formal things, but just so it's there. Posts are like blog posts, pages are static, more static content, forms are forms, of course. Trey maintains this entire system. So if you see that there's updates, there's no kind of, you don't have to take any action on that. Trey will end up doing that. But let's jump into some of the plugins just so you can kind of see. Maybe I'm not on my, let's see, 1 second. Oops, I'm not, 1 second. Oh, that's why. So, so in appearance, we have, sorry, in plugins, all the plugins you need should be already activated. So you don't have to worry about this, but if there are any plugins you didn't need, we don't actually install plugins. Trey is the master of all plugins, so you would never have to worry about that. But as a designer, if you're like, I need this kind of thing, this kind of feature, the client asks for this kind of feature, that goes through Trey. That's Trey's domain. In appearance, we have 2 different themes. Blocksy is the theme that we use for pretty much everything. And a WordPress theme is kind of where all the styles are saved. The reason we use Blocksy is because it's like the happy medium between full site editing and the old way. So between like this type of PHP thing and doing it all in the browser, Blocksy kind of fills that. And with Blocksy, you can actually do what I was showing you with full site editing. You can edit the colors, do kind of a lot of the creative things. So it becomes a lot of the design tasks happen inside of WordPress. So for instance, if I go into the appearance customize menu, I could change different layout options. I can set different maximum size widths. You usually don't want to play with a lot of these because they're the best standards. So 1290 is the maximum size. That's actually a best standard built on the size of displays. So these are a lot of best standards. We usually don't mess a lot with that. What we usually actually focus on are typography and colors. So those are two things. So like if the client wants different colors, we update it here in the color palette. We try to kind of work within this palette, this amount of colors that Bloxy gives, but it's literally just changing these colors to whatever you need, and they'll automatically change in the site. Typography is very similar. So we have a lot of different typography options. If the client is absolutely adamant about a certain type of font that's not in here, we have to get Trey, our developers, to install it. So again, it's all kind of like what you see is what you get. It's all here. And then the different kind of post pages. So in WordPress, there's different, like I was saying, there's posts and pages. You can choose with Bloxy different types of ways of laying out a blog. So you have a few different design options. They're pretty limited, but you can kind of like, if the client wants one, you do that. And then if it's not in here, then we estimate it as a custom feature, which I'll get to the custom feature development in a little bit here. But all of the kind of design elements can be the major global style pieces are done in this customize menu here in Bloxy. So it's under appearance, customize. That's where you could change colors, get all sorts of stuff going. A cool thing too is that Bloxy is a theme that has lots of demo content to use. So there's another really good URL. In fact, let me put some of these URLs in there for you in the chat. So there's the Decubing design. The next thing is Bloxy's theme. So Bloxy has a lot of starter content pieces. So let's go to starter sites. So all of these types of starter sites can be integrated into Bloxy. So usually what we do is Melissa and the designer will work with a client and have these starter sites and say, like, which ones have a similar vibe, have a similar content, all of these type of things. And then we'll import that starter site into WordPress. And from there, you're able to use it and really kind of to integrate that type of content. So if a client says, oh, I really like the wedding site, Trey will have that ready to go when you come here, and you'll have all the data in it. I'm going to quickly put in one of the sites just so that we have a little getting started theme here. 1 second. Copy my license. Nope. 1 second. Oh, there it is. Okie dokie. So I'm just going to import in starter site. So you can do it under the Bloxy menu. There's all these different starter sites that can be imported. Let's just say, since this is your kind of test site that we're playing with, I'm going to import, I don't know, this persona one. And it's going to run through just kind of all the things that need to be done. It's going to import it all. And this is importing content, it's setting styles and all types of things. So this is usually if the client really like is starting from one of the starter sites, then the first step for any design is literally just importing the design elements into WordPress. So once all that's imported, you'll see that the site now has the full site that's imported in here. So now the job of the designer is to go in and update the content that the client has. Melissa, the project manager, will have a pretty good kind of understanding of what content needs to be switched. She'll probably have a Google Doc or a Notion document around that about what content needs to be switched. And the big pieces of it is going in, changing the colors, updating kind of this like the look and feel to the client's interest. So you change the color palette, changing the typography, these type of things to the client's interests, and then going in and updating the content. And now when it's one of these sites, so I'm going to show you 3 different things. I'm going to show, this is the first one, is going through starter sites. Then I'm going to show you a site that is more from scratch, that doesn't have a starter site involved. And then I'll show you a fully custom site. So this is going from a starter site. So we have these pages, and you just go into a page, and it's really not, you're going to just have to learn how to do let's see. Yes. Don't know. That works. Yes, there it goes. So your role is to go in and update content. Now, this is the place that there will be some stuff to do in Photoshop or in Illustrator. Say like one of these pictures, like they give you a bunch of pictures and they're all weird sizes, weird colors. That's when the Photoshop and Illustrator comes in and updating that. But most of it is updating just the content, going in, changing things. The colors will change because you've set the colors in the appearance menu, but it's just a literal switching out stuff, and that's really the main job. It's also important to note, and I'm going to go into this in more detail in a second, that you have this right-hand side that gives you some options on the design. Usually, if it's a site coming from a starter site like this one is that I'm just showing you, you don't really need to fool around with these page options that much. They can be toggled here through these different kind of options on the top here. But you don't usually need to fool around with that too much if it's a starter site. Usually it's more updating content, changing out content, and get it going. I think the Patrick Taylor Foundation site, that first site, is going to be a lot of that, which is good because it's the first time to get familiar with WordPress. Using a starter site is a great way to get familiar with WordPress, and then and start using it before you do something from scratch. So does that make sense to you? Are you following me about like the starter site, kind of where you're at? What you're doing is really font, colors, maybe some other kind of things underneath the customize area, and then changing out content for these starter sites. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Super
Cool.
straightforward.
Cool. Then, so now I'm going to delete this site because the next thing is actually, I'll just change the name to starter sites here, just so you have this and you can kind of see it. Starter site experiments. Now I'm going to create another one, and then we're going to talk about a from scratch Blockly site. So this is like Katie's So the next one is from scratch, and this is probably our most common type of site that we do.
Org.
What's that? Oh, sorry, shit. Okay, I'll fix that 1 second. Delete. So the stuff that I'm doing right now, Trey usually handles. Like if you have any tech things, it's mostly Trey. But since you have a tech background, I'll kind of get into some of that as well. Okay, so now we have our from scratch experiments. And this is, so what usually happens is a client will then, instead they'll say, no, we don't want to use a template like this. We want something kind of like built from scratch. So they'll give a document that kind of looks like this. Let's see. What should direction? Yes, here it is. So we'll develop what's called a website direction document. And this is, also kind of, the Patrick Taylor might be more like this, we'll see. But they'll give a document like this, and it'll have all the sitemap in it, and then it'll have all of the content elements in it. So, you can use the starter sites as inspiration, but you're really doing all the major design heavy lifting in WordPress. So what I usually do is, again, I think Trey would take care of this, but we have to activate the Blocksy theme to get it going. And then once it's in there, the first thing that I usually do, again, is just update the look, the colors, the typography, any of these things that I know is going to be for the brand or for the client. I'll do that. And then it's literally a process of following this document, asking questions when you don't understand things. So you will be on some initial calls with the client. So you should have a pretty good understanding as soon as you get this document. But this is really a design outline. So for instance, let's look at this. There's going to be, the client wants a large image banner, a better world with a button that says the Andercorp difference. Then they want a who we are section. Then we want our team with that's linked, a mission statement section. So it's intentionally not designed. And what I usually do is I'll go in and copy, all of this direction. I'll go into a page and I'll create the new page. I think this is called the home page. And I'll just paste it in here. And once it's pasted in here, then you could start designing. So WordPress, and have you used the version of WordPress with these blocks at all?
I'm not, no.
Okay, cool, all good. So WordPress has these blocks. It's called the block editor. And they have a whole bunch of different type of blocks. And the way to do it, whenever you see a plus button, you can click on a block and add to it. The other way you could do it is type this backslash, and then it'll bring you up like a few of the most common blocks. But that plus button will come up. You find what block you want. So right now we have a large image banner, and it's a really good thing to familiarize yourself with the different WordPress blocks that are available. I'll, in a second, when we talk about the next phase of work, the totally custom stuff, I'll introduce you to our XD template that has pretty much all the blocks laid out. And yeah, so we add a new block. So if it's a large image banner, there are lots of different blocks for that. I usually do a background image block. So it's called the AWB block. And then you could select from here, the little toggle up on the right-hand side is where you can get settings for the block. So I'll select an image. Sometimes the client already has an image. Sometimes you have to supply your own image. So I'm just gonna, this is unfortunately my only image. I'll make it my face. There's some options I can do for this image. I think, did I select it? Yes. There it is. You can select the size, these type of things. You have a lot of design options. You can add an overlay to that image. So I'll do that. And then you could start dragging content into that block. The other things you can do when you're clicking, it's a real clickable interface. When you click on any box, you have additional options on alignment. So I'll make this a full width alignment, and it's good to look at inspiration sites while you're doing this. We really love again that Blocksy site, and to look at like their starter sites for inspiration and things that they're doing are really handy. So I'm looking at this starter site, and I really like this big bold area, which I think plays really well with a header. So I'm going to try to kind of replicate that. So you can literally just drag the content into the block. This needs to be a button. If you want to, a little hack is you can just change any block into anything else. So I'll highlight that, and I will, there it is. I'll change it into a button, and then I'll drag this into the block like this. I'll position it in the center. Since I'm using this image, I'm using the Blocksy example as my kind of guidepost. This is when the design really comes in. I'll change the color of the text. I'll add before the block a spacer. I'll duplicate this and add another spacer below. A really handy thing when you're editing and designing in WordPress is that sometimes it's difficult, like when you're clicking around things, to like click on the right thing. You can always use this block navigator on the top side to actually just click the things that you want to click to. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. I'm going to delete some of the content direction. Here's a who we are section. I'll look at some of the examples and see if we can find a who we are. Sometimes, I'll add in, so like, for instance, this has a really nice background image. So I'll go in and I'll either like look online, or I'll design in Photoshop or Illustrator a really cool background image and plop it in. So like that's something to be done. But I'm trying to look for something that's like good for like this who we are section. Let's see. I constantly am looking at stuff. So like I kind of like how this is. It's like a call out type of thing. So maybe I'll do something like that for them. So another cool thing you do is you can highlight multiple blocks, and then you can click the little 3 more button and then click group, and this will group all the blocks, and I can add a background color. Let's say I want this color, and then I want it to be full width. So it's a full width of the page. I'll make this background full width too. It is full width, great. So that looks pretty decent, but not that great. But just to do quick kind of changes, I'll change this into a button. You can drag around blocks and move them around. So I can move this block anywhere I want. You can also add in multiple columns. So for instance, if I want mission statement to be on its own column and core values to be on its columns, I'll add a new block. And what I'm doing right now is I'm clicking the the forward slash, and then I'm just writing what I want, column. Um, uh, 2 columns. Let's drop in the mission statement into this column with this down here. You can do any number of things. So as you see, it's kind of like a it's just like a design program. And the rest of it is literally just kind of trying to figure out where things go. The biggest thing to learn this, and like a really good homework assignment, is just to look at what all the blocks do. Like I would literally just like kind of just like start playing around and seeing what these blocks do. WordPress also has these things called patterns. So you can drop in different patterns of blocks. So headers, there's a lot of different patterns that you can use and drop in that give you kind of the flexibility. But since, we usually use starter sites and from scratch sites like this. And after you're done, you'll click publish. You'll have the URL for everything. Another key thing is if you want to update the header or footer, you would do that under customize again. Oops. And in customize, you can update the header or the footer. You can decide what menu you want for the header. You add new items, and I'm going through this kind of fast just in a spirit of time. You add new items in the menus area. So if I want to create a new header menu, I'll create that here. I'll make it the header menu. I'll add 2 pages to it. And now I'll save that menu. And now we'll see the home page is up here. It's a nice kind of style. I could go in and restyle that header menu if I want to. Again, under customize, there's a few different header menu options. So like I could move around things. So right now there's, let's see. Oh, here it is. So right now it's kind of like long and wide. I can make it boxed. This is really something that you're going to have to click around in. And again, I'll just keep saying this. Definitely suggest explore Blocksy's starter sites and documentation, because that's going to really tell you how to use this system and how to update it. The cool thing about this way of developing and designing sites is you don't really have to worry too much about responsive design, because Blocksy takes care of all of it for you. So, it's all pretty much there, but I would highly suggest kind of look, there's a lot of options to update things. So like, for instance, like a footer, I can update the footer going to clicking on edit. Maybe I want a different type of design. Maybe I want everything to be centered. Instead of like right now, the copyright is kind of like over to the left. Maybe I want it to be centered. So I'll just update the footer in any number of ways. Maybe I want a menu item there. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. You really have a lot of options within Blocksy to be able to update things. And it's just a matter of getting to know what you can do. And it's like, what we find is it's literally just jumping into projects. Like as soon as you're in a project and working on it, a client will say, can you do this? You'll try to see if Blocksy can do that. Once it can do that, then you're good to go. And you're good to update it. Yeah. So that's kind of the from scratch experiments. Again, I'm going to share you on this as well, so you can kind of see it. This is when it's from scratch, you'll get a document that's very much like this content direction document. And then it'll be your job to assemble the site, to add the pages that are in here, to update, to design it, to pull it together, to pull any icons that you think might work. There'll be some design direction through our discovery meetings with the client, but most of it will be your kind of what you choose and how you choose, and hopefully you can make it consistent. Usually these sites have 1 or 2 reviews with the client, make some changes, update some things. Now, does that, before we go on, does that all kind of, is that starting to gel? I know you're just going to have to get in here and do it, most of it, but.
Oh yeah, it all makes sense.
Okay,
I
cool.
should have also mentioned that I did used to maintain a WordPress site, but
Oh, cool.
of course these, not all of these things existed then. So it's great to see it.
Cool.
The full run through.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I'm giving you a little bit of overview. All right. So the next phase is to totally custom. So that's the 3. There's the from a starter site, from scratch, and completely totally custom. Now the completely totally custom stuff, we try to stay more away from, because what I've showed you can do around 80% of what clients need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you a few things that are completely totally custom. So Palmisano. So this is a site that has a lot of completely totally custom things to it. These fades and things, it's actually just a plugin. That's another thing. If the client's like, I need fades, that's just another thing that this system can do. Trey and Melissa can work with you a lot to show you like the ins and outs of when a client requests it, what it can do. And so they're always there, and you can just ask them in Slack, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then eventually you'll know, and you'll be able to teach other people. But this site is totally, completely custom, because there are features on it that that folks haven't, that Blocksy doesn't do. So for instance, this special type of pop-up feature is just something that Blocksy doesn't do. And so we had to build it totally from scratch. And when we have to do things like this is when XD comes into the frame of reference. Because since you can't build it or design it in WordPress, we have to use XD to do it. And that is done, basically the client, you'll get a, similar to the content direction document, you'll get kind of like an overview of what the client is looking for. When you get that overview of what the client is looking for, then you can kind of like build out mockups. We have a pretty good boilerplate theme. So 1 second, let me pull it up. So we have a pretty good theme, and the reason why, and I'll share you on this so you have it as well. This theme, and I don't know how much you've used XD, but we've made pretty much every Gutenberg component that you would need, every Gutenberg block, every block that we showed in WordPress is here. So when you're actually developing out the piece, you have the blocks to start with. These are all different components in XD. Now, the cool thing about this is what we usually do is the client will say, I want this custom, fancy component, and we'll estimate out the design. You'll do the design, and then Trey will build it. But we do a mock-up of the entire page of the site, with that custom component in it. Say this is a custom component. This will be reviewed by the client. It'll be totally custom. It'll be reviewed by the client, and then it'll go into build. Trey will build it, and then it will be moved into the site, where then you can use it. It'll just be another block that we do. So it'll just be like adding another block, but you've designed it here. You've gone through the design pieces. Now, the thing about custom components and what the system that I shared with you is you usually will have to do different views. So you'll have the mobile view and the standard view. You know, with XD, you can have like different clickability and different things. It's with the totally custom projects, it's literally whatever you think is going to convey best to the developer what the client wants. And that's the main thing that you're doing. But it's a totally custom thing. And we start from this scratch because it has all of the standard sizing that WordPress will use. And then you'll build that custom component in here and make it clickable and updatable, whatever needs to be done. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So again, we have this three kind of pieces: the starter sites, the from scratch sites, and the totally custom sites. Just to kind of clue you in on our workflow, and I'll add you to the workflow document right now too. Decubing workflow. Where did I try? Oh, Pro Design, that's what it's called. So I'm going to add you to this right now just so you know everything. And we're really open and transparent about everything we do. So there's a lot more information here than you would possibly need. Yeah, maybe you're actually on this one, but yeah. Katie at operation. There you are. So just so you know, like the project management workflow, with the website build outs, migrations. So this is, again, this would be either a from scratch or from the starter theme. And it just takes you through everything that we normally do, from schedules internal kickoff to development and sets tasks. We'll have like quarterly, the main thing that you would be kind of interested in is the website build outs and migration. If I think we have a additional requested work, everything is in here. You know, sometimes the client will send us mockups. We don't like to work from mockups 100%. If we do, we kind of discourage that because, again, we're using Bloxy, and that's kind of how we develop from it. But this document has everything you could ever want to know about what we do. So thought it's a good thing to share. At this point, do you have any questions about the kind of the role of the designer, what we do, anything else at all? Happy to be total brain dump.
Not currently. I mean, I was already in on that other meeting as well, so I think I got, you know, the overview.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy transition.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, and again, it's what I notice, what I've given you right now is the spiel I give to everybody with some design experience or at least design interest. Once you get in there and start doing things, you'll have a lot more questions. Totally expect that. You know, Trey, me, or Melissa will be able to field any of those questions. We usually are in Slack to do it. You know, it's keeping track of this. I'm gonna now stop.